Hello and welcome to SHRP Talk, the show by washed-up athletes for washed-up athletes looking to be their best self. On today's show, the brothers and I sat down and reflected on our previous episodes the last few weeks with our guests, just discussing some of our takeaways and biggest things we've learned. We dive into some practical ways to eat and live healthy and discuss some changes that have taken place in our own lives and kind of get into purpose and faith. So hopefully from this episode, you're able to take away just some practical things that we've discussed in previous episodes and just kind of an insight into our lives and the way we think and have processed things the last few weeks and kind of where the show is headed. So hopefully you enjoy, and thanks for tuning in. Before we get rolling with today's episode, I want to take a second to tell you about SHRP Training. Snyder Health Recovery and Performance Training is an online training platform to help washed-up athletes look, feel, and move better. We offer several different group options catered to your needs, interests, and goals, with new programs delivered each month through the TeamBuilder app. Features include video demonstrations, 24/7 messaging and feedback, and access to the SHRP Edge, a comprehensive guide to upgrade your diet, sleep, and life. Use the code PODCAST in all caps to get 50% off your first month when checking out a program. Iron sharpens iron, so let us help you become your sharpest self. Now let's go. And we're back with another edition of SHRP Talk. Today, joined by Jaden and Brandon. No guests this week for the first time in a while. Guys, how we doing?
Doing good. Living at home.
Good.
Back with the boys.
Georgia.
Yeah.
Georgia.
Brandon's living it up in Georgia. Some AAU
Georgia.
tournaments.
Yep. A little peach jam. So they say all you can eat is peaches. So I'm peach down. No,
Nice.
in
Solid.
Georgia, 11 days. So
Some heat, a
Get it.
little bit of heat.
it's hot. Although I hear it's really hot in the Midwest. I was talking
It's
to
getting
somebody
hot.
in KC. It's supposed to be like a heat index of like 110.
When you live in Texas for a year, it really
Yeah.
don't feel too hot anymore. But it is what it is. All right. Well,
Better
let's
than
get
the
rolling.
cold.
Yeah, facts. Well, as I said earlier, no guests this week. But yeah, just we've had 3 straight guests, our first guests that we've had on the show, and just some very cool conversations, unique backgrounds and stories for all 3, I guess 4 guests, but just have gotten a lot of good feedback, especially for the last one. Jody and Justin have been hit up by a bunch of people just looking for help. I think that really resonated with a lot of people who, going through similar things or have experienced similar issues, and they're clearly very knowledgeable in that area, and I think that come across. And then also just Peyton and Noah, kind of similar in the sense that, they had injuries and just movement, stripped from them in a while, and just, how their faith and their community just help them bounce back. And I don't know, what were your guys' I guess biggest takeaways from our guests so far?
I think there's a lot of common themes that you see in their stories, a lot of big takeaways. Noah and Peyton, you see what, like, the value of movement, like being so active in their lifestyle and then having that taken away, and the impact it had on them, just the value of movement, of exercise, and how it can affect your health. And I think we take it for granted. I think we don't understand the true value of it until it gets taken away. So really just honing in on moving and staying healthy, I think, is really important. And then, Jody's story, I think, features a lot of different aspects, and I think there's a lot of power in her story. Just the power of health from an all-encompassing and holistic point of view. I think there's a lot of importance in in the nutrition, in the sleep, in the recovery. I think sometimes we put it into this health into a box of maybe just move more, but I think it's so multi-dimensional that um, there's just so much power in people's stories, what's worked, what hasn't, and I think, yeah, like you said, they all had some strong stories, had to rely on faith, had to rely on their community, and yeah, I look forward to continuing to hear powerful stories, but learned a lot from those three so far. It's been awesome.
Yeah, like right off your last point, I think just the vulnerability they all showed, I guess,
Yeah.
is maybe the word. I guess this environment kind of opens that door a little bit, but I mean, without them like taking that step forward and being willing to share their stories, and especially the hard part, like Jody came out right away and just talked about like her ER visit, and I didn't know that about her, and that's my aunt, right? And I think hearing Noah and Peyton's perspectives on their deal and their struggles, I guess has me really excited and grateful to be doing this with you guys. And um, it's just been really enjoyable to just hear stories. Like, I know when I was in Omaha, I worked with Arif in 7-on-7. He was a BOS coach and did Nebraska Elite, shot out Nebraska Elite. He always said, like, live a life that's a story worth telling or worth listening to. And I think all 3 or 4 of them have like stories that are really worth listening to. And I guess that'd be my ploy. And to everybody listening is like, what are you doing? That's hard, that's challenging, right? And I think that goes right into the movement things, into the diet things. Like, are you putting yourself in a position to have the energy to do hard things and fun things in life? Because when you come out on the other side of difficulty, it's really rewarding and it gives you confidence to move forward. And so I guess that was it's been fun to reflect on just those 3 conversations and learning things. And like, I knew Peyton was going through all of that stuff, but to hear her like really talk about it and how much time she suffered, and to hear what got her through and her lessons on the other side, like, maybe that conversation in a non-podcast setting would be maybe forced or something like that. But she shared it with us, which is, a lot of these things are just as helpful for us 3 as they are to maybe whoever listens, right? And so I think that's the really fun part of it. And, we're not here to try to become famous or anything like that. We're here to reconnect with people in our lives that mean a lot, that we really respect and we think have valuable information for you guys. And then hopefully that helps you guys too, the people listening. So yeah, I mean, like Lisa reached out to me about Jody. It's just been fun to hear the people that have listened and just, where it's already spread to. And I think it's a really positive thing that we're doing here. And obviously it's really fun just to connect with you guys, each week, even if it's Georgia or wherever we're doing, just, making time each week to make this happen. It's been really fun. So
Yeah, man, it just started as like just an idea, just something, we just, talked about briefly, maybe like a year ago, and then kind of became more real and just started as kind of just a way to connect and talk each week, especially when, we were all separated and at the beginning of this. And yeah, it was just a cool way to meet up and chat for 3 brothers, 3 best friends who don't talk enough, but still fairly new, but yeah, just have had some really cool conversations, and I've personally learned a lot. And I know there's a lot of people out there again who have connected in some way. And yeah, I think they all had cool stories, but I think all of us have some experience we've gone through or something we've learned, and I think it's just important to be vulnerable and share that, because back to what Jody was saying, like if it helps one person, it's worth it. So I think this is a great platform for those stories to be told, those experiences to be shared. But just in day-to-day living, I think just being bold, being vulnerable, and just be willing to help people by sharing what you're going through. And yeah, I learned a lot from them, and also learned a lot about them from people that we
Yeah.
all know very well. It's cool to be able to learn more, kind of in this setting, and kind of back to the movement thing. Like I mean, me and Jaden have stayed fairly healthy. You've dealt with injuries, but hearing them talking about getting movement stripped from them, I think was very eye opening. I haven't really been faced with anything like that, and it almost worries me to go through that. And one that just shows how important and beneficial movement is, just from a physical standpoint, but also the mental standpoint. But just cool to hear how their faith got them through that. That's we're talking to mainly the washed up athlete. There's obviously people we can help, and part of that is the diet stuff, the physical stuff. But I think the faith piece is a big part of that, especially from an identity perspective. Especially for a washed up college athlete, you spend years and decades pouring yourself into competing, and then when that's done, it's hard to, you can place that in other things, in a job, in another person, but there's so many things that are temporary, but having that faith to fall back on when times are tough, I think that's a big deal. And so if we can help people solidify or even find that faith, then I think that's so worth it. And again, I've had a pretty easy and blessed life, so I haven't been through some of those hard things that they have, but I feel confident and at peace knowing that when those storms come, like, that we have something to fall back on. And I don't know, Brandon, I don't know if you can speak to that at all as someone who's gone through some of those harder
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. I mean, definitely they all kind of talked about like how their faith kind of was their, I don't know, their floor or their rock, right? Their anchor, in those times, like when everything else kind of doesn't make sense or is failing, or, it's like sometimes you can move one identity to the next and to the next. And like, I just remember, like, for me in college, it was like my lowest point. It was like this failed and then that failed, like sports failed, relationship failed, and like school wasn't. And then what am I going to do with my life? And like, I just remember like on my worst day um, of my life, I remember a book that Todd gave me um, is like, was the thing that that pushed me forward, right past like the lowest time when I thought like everything failed, like, and I didn't feel like I had really anything. Like, that was the last piece. I remember being in my room and I looked over and it was like this book that he randomly gave me before I went back to Iowa City the second time to finish school. Ended up being like the only light that I had. And it was like the book was glowing. And basically it was like, you know, blessed is he who basically stays the course and is still like proud to know God and to be of God when everything like fails, when everything doesn't make sense. And like, because everything will fail you. And it's like all of it, even the good things, at some point can fail you or let you down or like can go away from you. And so, and Todd was also the person like that, when I felt like I needed to accept Christ into my life for the first time, it was him who I called. I remember being like just after baseball practice and I was at home and I was bawling, and like he was the person I called. I was like, I just have this conviction that I need to like do this. You know what I mean? Or I need to do something. I don't know why I'm just like crying. I was like not that old. You know what I mean? I was praying for a Larchwood diamond. And it was like it was the beginning, but it was also like the root. You know what I mean? And it was crazy to see how that story when I was a teenager came full circle when I was 21 and had lost, in my opinion, like everything that I thought, could push me forward. It was my rock bottom, and when everything else failed. And so I don't know what, and I think those are like the sad stories when you hit those positions and you don't have that, like, I think it's incredibly dark. You know what I mean? There is no light. And so I know faith isn't, we're not essentially like, this isn't a faith podcast, right? But like, there's no question that faith is a part of all of our lives and our families' lives, and a lot of the people that we have on, and um, we're proud of that. You know, we won't shy away from that. That's very real for us. It's as real as, you know, touch or anything like that. So um, yeah, we're here for those stories. We're here for that too. But again, it's mind, body, spirit, right? So the intellectual stuff, the information, right, in the body and the training, but there's also the spirit component, and it takes all three to be truly healthy, I think, and striving and thriving. So
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's the why. Like why strive for health? Why interact with people? Why make connections? Why ask more questions? Why find a deeper meaning? I think that faith piece is so important for those that want to strive for that optimal health and and are looking for something to strive for. Because I feel like when we don't have that faith, we don't have that belief in something more, we can get lost in this world and lost in maybe what is our purpose? Why are we doing things? And yeah, in the Bible it says to treat your bodies like a temple. Like we get this one body, and we get to use it how we may. And I think there's just so much spiritually that tells us to like sharpen ourselves with others and be with others, and just love on each other and sharpen iron sharpens iron. It says it, and it preaches on it. And I think there's just so much power in finding a why, finding a purpose, and striving for health in that sense, and not necessarily what this world has to offer materialistically. I think there's just so much more value. And at the end of the day, when you're stuck with a decision that you don't necessarily have a concrete answer, I feel like you can lean on something that has purpose and has more meaning than what your mind may be telling you. I just think there's a lot of value there.
uh, and Colin, maybe you can add to that conversation through, I guess, this question. You have had a life change recently, job change, and think maybe seeing God's hand in some of the steps of that, or at least, you know, per our conversations, I think, you know, just your path, right, from Elon to Arkansas State to Texas, and then there's new opportunity. I don't know if you want to maybe update people on that and what you're doing now, and then maybe like kind of your perspective and how the dominoes kept falling, I guess, to set that up.
Yeah, I mean, we hit on purpose, and obviously career is a big part of that. And so coming to you from a little different studio, chilling back home because yeah, I moved back, took a new fully remote position with Team Builder, online platform for strength coaches. It's what me and Jaden deliver our programs through. Um, and I've talked on this a little bit. My whole undergrad career and beyond has been, working towards becoming a strength coach. I mean, I even remember when you were at Iowa, touring the new facility, and
Yeah.
I was talking like to mom, like, I'm gonna be a strength coach here someday. And I eventually realized that the football college route wasn't for me, but still wanting to chase that, that college strength coach position, kind of almost chasing a logo. That's not what it was all about. I love exercise and training, but kind of chasing, the worldly side of how cool it would be to rep like a Power Five or Division One logo.
Yeah.
And I put a lot of time and energy into that, working my way up, working for free and climbing up the ladder. And then, eventually did get that Division One job and enjoyed a lot of aspects of getting to coach at that level. And you can relate to this too at the college level. There's also a lot of things that you don't learn about till you're on the inside that maybe aren't as fun. For you, it was the recruiting, but I mean, there's just a lot of different things, and ultimately, it just felt like, that worldly purpose just wasn't there. I knew that someday, keep working, maybe I do reach that Power Five job, and I get there, and maybe I'm really happy for like 48 hours, and then it's like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I didn't want to get to that point. I'm self aware enough to know that that's how it would have been to get to that point. And that's not to say that there's not a ton of value in coaching. I felt like, that was probably the best part of that job, was just getting to interact with athletes and try to make an impact. But ultimately just felt like that wasn't the setting that I was ultimately called to be in. I just felt like answering, to other people, other coaches and administration, I couldn't be my fully creative and just self. It's just not, ultimately what I was meant to do. But I think I was still placed there for a reason, and learned a lot just from living in different places and meeting a ton of new people and getting out of my comfort zone. And so, I'm incredibly grateful for that. But just being okay with giving up a dream, I guess, is one way to put it. Just because I know what my identity is in, and it's not in a career, it's in more of an eternal purpose. And hopefully I can, this career change, this new career is hopefully, just one way I can do that, but also just getting to be back home in an area that I love, and continuing to do stuff like this with a consistent schedule, and getting to continue to, coach in an online platform, which is something I really enjoyed, and a population I've enjoyed working with, and getting to grow that. But yeah, it's just change is always not the easiest, but it's been exciting. And yeah, just having that, knowing what your purpose and identity is in, makes that easier and just more exciting. And so, yeah, just a new season of life, I guess.
What, I mean, maybe you don't have a for this, but like what's like the new dream, right? So that was, something that you were setting your mark on. Like what does that turn to now, or what did that turn to, or what's kind of something that you're striving to do or to be, or
Yeah. I was a guy, I've said this before as well too, like when people would ask like what my 5-year, 10-year plan is, at that side I would maybe lie and say like, hey, I want to be like a director someday, because that's probably what they want to hear. But in truth, I never really know. And I honestly don't try to live with that long-term vision. I
yeah,
know long-term what my destination is and where that identity
yeah,
is, and there's a lot of in between there where I don't know. And so I just try to take it one day at a time. And I think right now it's just to help people in whatever way I'm called. And part of it's still figuring that out. I think this podcast is a really cool way to do that. I think being closer to the West Line area and people I grew up with, there's a lot of people here that I can help serve, through SHRP training. That's a population I can help. But I think it's just listening and praying and just discerning where I'm called to help people. And so I think it's ultimately just to serve God and serve others in whatever way that looks like. And that could change. It could change tomorrow. It could change in a year, but just taking it one day at a time, I guess. So kind of a
yeah.
vague answer, but just
No, I
one day
love
at
it.
a time.
And Jaden, I guess same question for you. I mean, kind of can give an update through it too, but PT school at Iowa, but kind of a different phase right now. Maybe give people an update, and then maybe, I don't know, if you have some things you're striving for, or
Yeah. So
curious from my own perspective.
yeah, currently in just got done with week 2 of a 6-week clinical in Lamar's. So doing full time schedule, doing 410s with therapists there. It's been a really cool experience. Obviously, probably a little bit better than having to study nonstop and being in the classroom. Get to actually put some of that knowledge to use and serve people. And there's still reins on you. You're still pretty limited. There's still observation, so not ideal. But it really excites me for um, kind of the future of making my own kind of career, being my own therapist, making those decisions, and having just the autonomy to treat people in a way that I think is best. And yeah, there's a lot of dilemma, or just like there's issues with like maybe like insurance and how you can treat and some of that, just excess
Obstacles.
stuff.
Right.
Yeah. But I think there's so much value in the physical therapy career. You're constantly serving people to get back to their jobs, to get back to the goals that they're striving for. And people always ask me what I want to do with therapy, and I think it's just such a long-winded answer for me because I see so many avenues you can go down and kind of make physical therapy your own. So it's been definitely busier in the clinic. I've had to adapt to that full-time schedule, but it's been really enlightening. I've learned a lot from the therapists there. They've been um, really beneficial in my learning. And yeah, we get taught a lot of good stuff in PT school, a lot of um, different just knowledge and manual techniques, but actually putting it into practice and seeing how therapists interact with people, how they each kind of treat patients in their own unique way. I think there's so much valuable, just basically information that you can learn from those CIs. And I think clinical experiences are kind of the bulk of what you learn in PT school. I think there's probably the more value in those clinical experiences than some of the classes. So yeah, I've it's really made me excited. I know I'm pretty limited still. I still have a lot to learn. We've only learned half the stuff, so still got some ways to go. But yeah, it makes me really excited for a future of physical therapy, personal training, whatever I kind of want to turn it into. But yeah, it's been really good so far. 2 weeks in, third of the way done already. Seems like it's flying by. Um, but just a pretty typical outpatient clinic. See a lot of variety of different patients, just serving the community. But yeah, it's been good. Hey everybody, wanted to hop on here and announce some exciting things coming to SHRP Training. On August 1st, we'll be launching the SHRP Hybrid Training Program, which will be a custom weightlifting and custom running program catered to your goals. Along with this program launch will be a 40-day fitness challenge, and I'm looking for 7 of you to take part of this fitness challenge along with me. More information will come on both the SHRP Hybrid Training Program and this fitness challenge next week. But until then, stay sharp.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Um, Jaden, I would love to hear from you. Just kind of bringing it back to last week's episode, Jody and Justin. A lot of, I guess, a way of living, but like dieting and just different terms that maybe are probably new or a different way of thinking for a lot of people. But I feel like you're someone who applies all that stuff pretty well. So I would just love to hear from your perspective, just maybe what you personally learned and how you apply some of those clean eating principles, and maybe just what your daily diet looks like and how you implement that stuff. I think that'd be really beneficial.
Yeah, so I've been really invested in my health, probably since high school. Just invested in the knowledge. I feel like there's just so much value in understanding the knowledge, and there's a lot of disputing stuff. There's a lot of I don't know who to trust when they say one thing and then another person says another thing, and who's the real expert. But I think Jody had a lot of really good things to say. I've had multiple conversations with her on the topic of nutrition, and there's just I want to find a way that is clean but is also practical. Like you could get super restrictive, you could get super um, down to the calorie. Like there's
Start growing some, raising some steers in Larchwood.
yeah,
Back
like
then.
you can be super extreme, but I think there's value in trying to find a way that is practical for the listener. Like I want kind of like in high school, like I'm warming up for an hour and a half, and no, if I tell somebody else to warm up for an hour and a half, they're not going to warm up for an hour and a half. Like I want to have knowledge that is practical to a listener that can maybe transfer to their life. So just understanding, like these days, a lot of talk around protein for just maintaining muscle, because muscle is so important for our health, our longevity, our health span, and that's both muscle strength and muscle mass. They're kind of interchangeable, but yeah, a lot of stuff on fiber, just getting that 40 to 50 grams, and a lot of people get maybe 15. Like we, there's so much value in fiber for gut health, because yeah, gut health is a new trend. A lot of people are becoming more knowledgeable and more experienced in that functional medicine, and just coming to the conclusion that our gut actually matters, and it impacts our mind, our body, our sleep, our mood. It impacts so much more than we might have been aware of long ago. So I've really been focusing on finding just good sources of protein. So I think a good source of grass-fed ground beef goes a long way. I found like a company like Thousand Hills where it's grass-fed.
Just
It's
got a big old delivery box the other day.
and yeah, maybe order a bulk online. But I just think there's a lot of value in being able to stick to a routine, but also finding a routine that you like, because yeah, you could stick to something for a week or a month that is super restrictive and super extreme, but it's going to come to a point where you get a cake in front of you, or a huge meal, and you're just going to binge, and it's going to be an endless cycle of something that could be an eventual eating disorder. So I think there's a huge balance in finding meals that you can stick to, and just portioning it in a way that both has benefit, but maybe isn't the most healthy. Like it's 80/20, right? We talk about 80/20 all the time. Like you find meals you can stick to, like ground beef. So I'll do ground beef twice a day, and maybe sometimes 3 times a day, and it's a portion that I think um, helps get to my protein goal. Maybe sometimes I'm a little under, because I'm not necessarily trying to stay at 195. But yeah, and then just prioritizing. I don't have anything against vegetables. Like Jody said, she doesn't necessarily agree with vegetables. I don't think vegetables are necessarily essential for someone in their diet. I don't have anything against them necessarily. I've always been a pickier eater, so they've always been hard for me to get down. I've dabbled with smoothies. I've done all that stuff with vegetables, but I've found that you can get almost all nutrients from a good source of meat and a lot of fruit. And I don't think there's necessarily a lot of drawbacks from not including a ton of vegetables. Um, but yeah, protein, fiber, really important. Eating enough calories is really important. Just understanding a general framework to work with. A lot of people don't track, and I'm not telling you to track, but I think understanding just a general vicinity of how many calories you are eating, and maybe how many calories you are burning. Do it one time, you have a good gist then, especially if you're consistent, and then you can kind of monitor your weight based on are you losing weight based on how many calories you're eating, or are you gaining weight? And it's it is a little bit more complex in calories in, calories out, but it's pretty close. So um, I don't know. I just kind of went down a rabbit hole. You guys have any more specific questions or anything that arose from that?
Maybe just a question. Like, I think there's probably something to like the colors, right? Of, I guess, and you mentioned that fruits can probably give you some of the nutrients. I don't
Yeah.
know, from my perspective, like when you think about just protein or ground beef, I feel like, and you covered it well with the fruits, but like, I'm wondering if there aren't, and maybe this is just a simple question, but like, I feel like colors are important in your diet. Like, are there certain colors and vegetables that maybe you can't get through fruits and protein specific foods that maybe are important? And I'm trying to think like that's even the case, you know?
Yeah, there's definitely value. I There's pros and cons to almost every single food. You could look up a food, and there's going to be pros, there's going to be cons. Like there's certain fruits that don't necessarily agree with me. I Sometimes I'll get allergies, and there's some fruits that'll trigger that allergy. Like I cherries for one will get me. Sometimes strawberries, sometimes apples. It's interesting that it's so individualized to what the person is like dealing with, both genetically and just their microbiome. And like Jody said, like she has foods that it does not agree with her. So I think really experimenting with yourself, especially with fruits and vegetables, what you like, what makes you feel good. But yeah, trying to eat the rainbows is really good advice, I think. But yeah, honestly, just sticking to as many one ingredient foods as you can in a society that's full of ultra processed food, where yeah, we have those seed oils, we have food dyes, we have a lot of
Yeah.
processed dairy, processed meats. Just trying to stick to those one ingredient foods as much as you can, and you'll be in a really good place.
I feel like a lot of it is just like elimination of like the bland colors, like the tan and whites, right? Like the carbs and the breads. And I feel like that, even some like rices and stuff, I feel like that goes a long way. It seems somewhat unnecessary, a lot of those types of foods, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, especially if you're not necessarily an athlete. Like
Yeah, for
there's
non-athletes,
carbs.
right? Athletes, it's like, okay, go
Yeah,
ahead. But
like if you're eating rice for the carbs and performance wise, then I don't necessarily have anything wrong with it. But if you're just eating a ton of rice on a daily basis just to eat rice, then I don't necessarily see like the nutrient dense like purpose behind that.
yeah,
I just think, yeah, just trying to understand we need the vitamins, we need the minerals. Ideally, we don't want to supplement them. So eat as much nutrient dense foods as you can in order to get the most out of those foods. Somebody said, I don't know who to attribute this to, but you can kind of deal with your weight with macronutrients. That's what macronutrients will do. You can kind of monitor your weight based on that. Like people used to eat a bunch of junk food, but just count calories and they could lose weight. And it's not ideal. But then if you look at like micronutrients, that'll kind of determine how you feel. Like
yeah,
if you eat that junk, you can still lose weight, but you're going to feel like crap. But if you eat that junk and or eat good food and it's less than the macronutrient, you'll lose weight and feel better. So I think there's value
yeah,
in both the macro and the micro.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you kind of said it too, in that you have to find what works and is just sustainable for you. And I feel like there's so many people trying to make a lifestyle change who are just way too restrictive, whether that's like not eating breakfast or I mean just skipping meals, and then it's not sustainable. You eat huge meals later in the day and then suddenly those calories add up. But then also not trying to be perfect. Jody kind of hit on it last week. Like she's the type of person to, all or none. Like she can overhaul her whole lifestyle in an instant and can sustain it. But a lot of people aren't like that. And so I think just trying to make small changes and not restricting yourself. I mean, that goes a long ways, because there's just so many people who, like I said, skip breakfast and then eat big meals later in the day, or do really well during the week, and then the weekend hits and all of a sudden just goes out the window, and all that work you do during the week is for nothing. And so I feel like you do a good job of that, just like spacing meals out, and a lot of it can look the same every day, but also just finding ways to switch it up. And
I feel like
sometimes
also,
yeah, go ahead.
well, like, I feel like a lot of it is attributed to fast food and just like the busyness of work schedules and stuff. I feel like people do good probably when they cook for themselves for the most part. Like if you cook
Yeah.
most of your meals, I think you're probably in a pretty good situation because you're like really considering what's going into everything, and most of the things you're putting in you have control over. And I think, yeah, like the pre-made stuff or whatever, but I think most of like the bad stuff that are in most diets, I think for the common person probably comes from, they had a busy weekend or whatever, and they didn't prepare lunch Sunday night, and so they eat, you know what I mean, eat two
Mm-hmm.
fast food meals or two meals that they bought from a restaurant or whatever on Monday, and I feel like that really sets you behind for the next couple of days versus You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've even kind of had that too the last couple weeks, like just having a new schedule, and still trying to figure that out, and like groceries and everything. And like last night I didn't have groceries and didn't have time. I had other stuff to do, so just threw some like frozen, popcorn
Yeah.
chicken in, and it works from like a macro sense, I guess. But again, it's a lot processed food, and there's a lot of like fats in there, so not ideal. So I guess I think just looking ahead at your schedule, if you do know your schedule, just having a plan in place and not just flying by the seat of your pants every day. And so creating a routine, but then also looking ahead with like grocery shopping and meal planning, and just having like healthy snacks in between if there's going to be, busy periods during the day. Um, is there any
Like
snacks?
all that,
Is there any
all
snacks
that
you have
like
go to,
store.
Jade?
I'm not a huge proponent of snacking. I try to stick to mainly 3 meals. Just making those meals as basically nutrient dense as I can, to
Mm-hmm.
fill me up between. I probably eat, I mean, I eat more than the average person. So, um, yeah, it can definitely be hard. I have experienced it with working those 410s, the difficulty of maybe food prepping for lunch and doing something that's consistent in that basis. There's a lot of temptation just to not make anything and go somewhere for lunch, and it would be really easy. But I think once you find something that works for you and something you truly enjoy, like find something that is as healthy as it can be that you truly enjoy and truly look forward to in a meal. Like I I think breakfast is a great meal to start with. Like you said, people have been kind of skipping breakfast, doing this intermittent fasting thing. I did it for a while. I experimented with it. It can be a good way to restrict calories, but yeah, you get to that evening time, and that's when the binges come out. That's when the eating happens. So I think just starting with breakfast, finding something that you can truly find a savory breakfast, find the protein, like get away from the cereals, the slice of toast. Like a lot of this traditional breakfast food is just a carb heavy load that's going to make you really hungry throughout the day. Like I think if you have a savory breakfast that has a lot of protein, you start off on the right page, and then even kind of go down as we go throughout the day. I think a lot of people traditionally eat a lighter breakfast, maybe a little heavier lunch, and then really pig out during dinner. And I think there's a lot of benefit in doing it the opposite way, and eating a lot for breakfast, maybe eating a little bit for lunch, and then eating not as much for supper. I think there's less chance that you're going to stray from your diet in that sense. And maybe you sleep later than you probably should, and you get to that late night
Yeah.
snacking time. That's a different discussion. I think sleep is really important as well. Studies have shown that more sleep leads to less cravings throughout the day, and there's a lot of different avenues you can go down. But I think starting with breakfast and making that savory and high in protein is really beneficial.
I think that's so hard though, because like so many people start work at 7 or 8 or whatever, and if they have kids, and that's a whole nother beast, and it's just hard. Like the work schedule just makes it tough to get up and make eggs and sausage or eggs and bacon like before work. Like how sustainable that is. I mean, I think there's probably like meal prepping things there too, like egg bites and stuff like that. I think is probably a good idea. I don't know if you have any other advice for ways to like, and I don't think like eggs are that hard to make quickly, but and maybe you just need to make the time to do it. But I know a lot of people, you know, work early, right? And it's hard.
Yep.
It's a lot easier to get home from work at 5 and spend an hour making something you really want to eat when you're hungry versus getting up in the morning. And a lot of people aren't hungry in the morning. And I think that's like an acquired thing too. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
starting a pattern and then staying with the pattern. And then I think your body, I mean, we're routine people, right? Like our bodies are set on routines. That's how we were made. I think that's biblical too. And I think everyone would be more inclined to eat breakfast if they continue to eat breakfast. But I don't know if you guys have any thoughts there. I just think like that's difficult, you know?
Yeah, I mean, part of it's just strategy. Again, knowing your schedule and planning ahead. Like last few weeks, I've been waking up, 4:30 or 5, and it can be hard to make something that early. But night before, I'll pre-make a shake and have it ready to go, and I have something quick ready to go in the morning, and so it doesn't have to be a shake, but just again, just planning ahead and being prepared. So I think strategy and just finding resources, and maybe it's there's been a few people who have mentioned you can have like food delivered to your house or like meals delivered, and so it costs more money, but if you have the money for it and if it gets you living right, then maybe that's worth it. But I think part of it is just it's hard, but it's choosing your hard, because it's also hard to have an
Yeah.
unhealthy lifestyle and deal with the ramifications of that. So it's just choosing which
Yeah.
hard you want to take. Jaden has these long days. He's driving an hour. When he gets home, he probably doesn't want to take 10, 15 minutes to cook a meal. It'd be much easier to just grab something really quick, but it's important to him. He takes the time to do it and he sees the benefit from that. And so choose your hard, choose what you want to
Yeah.
deal with, and it's something that you might not see the immediate benefit from, but it's going to have a long-term effect. And once you do it enough times and it's part of your routine, it suddenly becomes easy. It's just part of your schedule, but the hardest part is just starting and finding what works for
Yeah.
you and finding something sustainable. So
Yeah.
just start, just experiment, and get into a routine. Find what works and find something that works for you.
Jane, you go, but like I was also thinking like it's just as hard to fight through a day fog. You know what I mean? When you're tired during the day because of what you
Mm,
ate, like that also
yeah,
hard. So it's like,
it's hard.
that's
Life's
also
hard.
a difficulty. So it's like you don't
Yeah,
have to feel that way, I don't think,
yeah,
and I think choosing your, like you said, what you put in your body and your routine for making food or whatever is difficult, but I'd say that's more fun than pushing through daily fog or daily tiredness.
yeah.
Yeah, like like Colin said, I've kind of had a gut check these last 2 weeks with that full work schedule and living in Larchwood where it's an hour and 10-minute commute. So having to leave the house at 5:30 and not getting back till 7 p.m. It's hard for an eating schedule, but also a workout schedule. And I think there's a lot of value in I eat basically the same thing for breakfast and supper. Like those two are interchangeable. I've found something that works for me. And so when I do feel like I'm not going to have enough time in the morning, I just make double for supper and then have it already prepped for the next day. So I think there's a lot of value in finding something you can stick to. Like I'm going to stress that over and over again. Find a meal you can eat twice a day that you can stick to, that's nutritious and has a lot of protein, has a lot of fiber, and doesn't take that long to make. Like I make a beef patty from Thousand Hills that's like 40 grams of protein. Lately, I've been having some protein pancakes from Kodiak, throwing some fruit, like a cup and a half of fruit on top, and it's really easy. I really enjoy it, and it's been working so far. So just finding something that you can enjoy and look forward to making and eating that's still simple and that you can stick to, I think is really valuable. Even if you're waking up, like, yeah, me and Colin are both waking up at 5. He makes a shake. I make food the night before. So there's different ways to do it. There's not one way that works. I think if you try different methods that do work for you, you'll find something eventually. But it takes, yeah, you choose your heart. Like it takes yourself to check yourself. Like nobody's going to do it for you, and you have to value it. And yeah, I mean, I value nutrition more than probably the average Joe, and so it really takes a gut check and someone that is prioritizing their health and managing their time. Because yeah, it's hard to stick
One
to.
more question. Like, I know my specific industry, like a lot of people have tournaments on the weekends and are out of town and stuff. Like, and again, that can be a setback. And then maybe you're gone all weekend and you get back late on Sunday. And you know what I mean? And you don't really have like, if you're on the road, I know Colin, you kind of experienced some of this too. Like, any advice for or thoughts on ways you can? Because like I'm in a hotel right now, right? So I can't really, and I can eat the hotel breakfast, but like after that, what's the next steps in the day? I don't know if you have any thoughts. Curious.
With the with the fast food stuff, obviously not ideal, but when you're traveling, like it's just going to be part of it. Gas stations and hotels, breakfast and fast food is going to be part of it, but that doesn't have to be an excuse to eat a super unhealthy meal. I often use that as an excuse many times when I was on the road. It's part of it. It's just hard to say no to good meals, which part of that is if you dominate the rest of that week, it's
Yeah,
it's a
valid.
cheat meal and you don't have to be perfect and you can give yourself grace in those moments to do that when you've earned that and it's okay. I think it's okay to have that once in a while. But yeah, long trips it can be hard. So I mean, just being prepared, having uh, like a MyFitnessPal app where you can just, I mean, every fast food chain is on their whole menu. So just finding something healthy. If it's a Chick-fil-A, it doesn't have to be two chicken sandwiches and fries. It can be maybe grilled nuggets with a fruit or a yogurt parfait, and it's a water instead of pop. It can be hard to say no to those. I love fast food. It can be hard to say no to those
Yeah,
fries and ice cream, but if it's a full weekend, um, just think ahead to yourself on Monday. You're probably gonna be regretting the choices that you made, and so I think it's just being prepared again and just having the discipline in those moments to make the right decision for your health. Being away from home doesn't have to be an excuse to be super unhealthy. Jane, you got anything?
Just a quick plug. I'll probably announce this. It'll already probably be announced by the time this comes out, but just starting a Sharp hybrid program where we're doing a little fitness challenge to start, and something that will challenge you holistically. It has a diet component, it has a movement component, it has a sleep component, it has a lifestyle, faith component. Something that'll test you in all aspects. And if you are looking for um, help with nutrition, help with some stuff, that will be coming out. So, a little quick plug.
love it,
Big time,
love it,
big time. Well, I guess we
love
can.
it.
If you got anything else with that discussion,
It's
we
great.
can we can look ahead a little bit. We will be off next week. You boys, well, I don't know how long you guys are going to be there. We got our Hugavine vacation coming up. A big deal for us and about 140, 150 other relatives getting to Minnesota, renting out a big old resort and having a good time, enjoying each other's company, but also staying active with our family Olympics and golf and what other activities transpire. But we'll be off next week. Got anything about vacation? I don't know what days you guys are going to be there, or just any other thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'll hopefully be there the weekend of Monday if I can navigate some things. We'll see. Um, but just we've talked about the value of family, and I think it's just such a great week, filled with so many great people. You get to connect with people you see maybe once a year, and just build those connections. And I think, like this podcast has shown, it takes asking the questions, and people are willing to be vulnerable, willing to share, willing to connect. So I think having the week, spending time with a bunch of family, yeah, playing golf, doing the good old Hugavine Olympics. Hopefully, I don't remember the last time I've won, but
I don't
um,
think I've ever won. I don't
it's.
think I've ever won.
I think Tim's probably won the last five. The man
Yeah,
just always seems to win,
Seems
but
to find a way to
have a
win.
bad first day is the key. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't do well day one.
yeah.
just good enough day one.
Yeah.
Figure out the
alive.
game and make some strategic decisions and take the advantage where it comes. No, it's always awesome. It's really hard to explain to people because
Yeah,
it sounds so
Yeah.
much like a
reunion.
reunion,
Yeah.
and reunions have, I think, a negative connotation for most
Yeah.
people, and I think we're really lucky to have the family we do. Blessed for how it started and how long it's gone on with Grandpa and his siblings, and uh, just a unique family. Just like so many cool people and fun stories, and people all over the country that are just doing awesome things. And so it's always just a blast to have conversations. You know, you just never know who you're going to sit next to, and just start blabbing away about something. And I feel like I always learn a lot. It's impossible to track the little blonde children because there's so many of them. It's just so overwhelming. But yeah, we're lucky, and it's going to be fun to see all of those kids just continue to grow, and it just comes in waves. So I think the family growing and doing well, and really lucky for that tradition that's continued, and it's always just fun to see how people make it happen, and fun to see everybody. So
Yep. So excited for that. Again, we'll be off the next week, but we'll be back in 2 weeks. Got a pretty cool guest lined up. Pretty excited for that one. So hopefully we can make that happen. But just excited to keep this thing rolling, keep getting some more guests on here, and keep learning, and hopefully just keep helping people one person at a time. So, anything else, boys?
You killed it.
good.
All right. Awesome. Well, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Pleasure chatting with you boys, as always. And till next time.
Adios.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you enjoyed today's episode, leave a rating, review, or tell a friend to check us out. Be sure to follow us at SHRP_training for more content to help you be your best self. Go be great today.